Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital.
Welcome back, listeners. So this month I am flying solo as my brother Chris was called away for work, but I am in excellent company today with two great guests. Joining me are the co-producers of Trash Arts Productions, a collective making feature films, shorts, webisodes, music videos. They founded it a while ago and they've been making amazing range of productions, including indie horror films like Trash Art Killers, Devil May Care, and Deadly Display, which we just got to see at Horror on Sea. Welcome, Jack Batchelor and Sam Mason Bell.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's lovely to have you here. I'm so excited because we usually have somebody who's like worked with a production company or is doing it on their own. We've never had members of an actual production company on, so I'm curious to know what made you start Trash Arts.
Well, I started Trash Arts with a few other people back in college in like 2007. But that was us just being like filmmakers wanting to just, when you're just in college and you're just starting up sort of thing. It didn't really become more of like a production company until like 2016. Jackson had been there for a couple of years and we decided to become a limited company and yeah, try and like make films from what we want to tell stories and get other filmmakers involved. And we've been lucky to be able to continue doing that. Cat ran around. We can continue doing that for, well, since then, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think like we sort of started Trash Arts sort of thinking that there wasn't many sort of opportunities out there to sort of get a career, and so we thought, well, let's just do it ourselves. Let's just start building our films and trying to make something that we like and we enjoy, and hopefully other people will then like it and enjoy it too. Who knows?
And what were the kinds of things that you really wanted to make, but that you found weren't out there already?
I think it's difficult to pinpoint it because to me, like, that's more on the obviously the economic side of getting that production together, on getting the money together, getting the teamwork together. And when you first start trying to make films, you want to try and you want to go guerrilla, but you also think, well, how much can the local council or the local governing bodies of money can support? And then you will learn very quickly, not much. They're not going to help you at all. Just get on with it, get the films out there, spread them out to people, and then yeah, you start to meet different people who can help you with the finances. But that's always the first thing, and that's what kind of for some people you see where they just go, "What? That's the biggest burden." That when it comes to filmmaking, and I just love film too much to just want to make that the burden. And fortunately, we've met a lot of people who felt the same way along the way.
Yeah, and I think we've worked with a lot of people who come from sort of the Amdram world, where you do have to just sort of string things together, get things done. You sacrifice sort of nights of your life to like rehearse constantly and other such things like that. So they sort of intrinsically go, well, I'll give everything I can to the project, and I'll help out with like moving equipment or setting things up and things like that. So you end up with just a great sort of team of people putting in the work essentially.
Yeah, it's again, it's when you're lucky to be surrounded by a creative community, you're gonna support each other, whether it's gonna be, like musicians popping in as actors, or you, like you said, shooting music videos and stuff. We're just kind of Portsmouth's given us that, and that's been something that we've been able to just develop, and yeah, you build friendships through it. And it's great to see with Horror on Sea and stuff like that. We're seeing more on like a national perspective of that sort of community.
Mm,
I love seeing a good community that works together.
yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's really one of the things that feels like it's very much the heart of indie horror is how much everybody is excited that other people are making films and want to be involved. You guys have been doing Horror on Sea for a few years, right?
Yeah, the first year was we entered our film Lonely Hearts in 2019. Um, and yeah, that film caused a bit of reaction because it's a very extreme film. And Paul thought it'd be hilarious or clever, I don't know, to put it on at 10 a.m. and it was not really for a 10 a.m. audience. But people remember it, so can't
Yeah.
complain about that.
Did you find that just being there as well, though, was great experience from like personal as well as professional side?
Oh, definitely. I mean, like the first time I went, I Jack couldn't come up,
Yeah, I can make it,
but the co-director Jess Hunt came up, and we were very fortunate that Martin Payne was our producer. So when you know Martin, he's going to introduce you to every single person, and then that's how I met Tom Lee Rutter. And then next year when Jack came up, we met Steve, and yeah, since then everyone's become a close friend that we want to work with like all the time. There's just such a good fun vibe, and it's like Christmas for horror.
I love that. It's so true. This year we just got to this past weekend we got to see Deadly Display. And do you want to tell us a bit about how that came out? You briefly just mentioned you met Steve last year, but what happened then?
Well, actually, he in 2020 wanted to remake his film Clarity. Clarity has similar elements to the giallo that he's based Deadly Display, House of the Yellow Carpet. And essentially, through that film, he was going to do it with Jess, who directed Lonely Hearts. But COVID happened. But he still wanted to do the remake of it, and we kept talking about it and talking about it. And during COVID, he just came down and we just sat down and like crafted the script with him. He wrote the script, but we just helped him structure in a way where it could work and get the things that he wanted to come across. Unfortunately, by that point, we were doing quite a few films with Bella, so you could see how brilliant she was. And then with Sai, he'd worked on Tom's film for Video Shop Tales of Terror, and Sai's brilliant in that. So he just gave him that, wow, this is the guy for me. And he really wanted the Wedge Dreams because we ran a film festival event in 2020, and he just loved the venue. And he was like, "Can you give me this venue?" And it's like, "Well, I'll try." But fortunately, the timing just worked out. And yeah, and we shot it on January the 2nd of 2023, which is weird to shoot a film as soon as the year starts. But yeah, it was
That's quite a tight film as well because it's very minimal cast and like you said, it's the one space. Do you find shoots like that more invigorating because of limitations, or is it like more relaxed because you don't have as many elements to worry about?
personally, I do find them invigorating because you have to like it's stressful, but then you have to find constant creativity in rooms that are really starkly. It was just mostly in that main room with the stage and everything, and it's black walls, and you've got to run around each time to obviously reset it with different set of lighting and. But it's still more fascinating, and we've done a lot of kind of chamber pieces in that regards, where you just
yeah.
play with those limitations, and yeah, you get to keep it character focused as
Sort of
well.
like time displacement when you're doing it though, because
Mm.
obviously if you're in a dark room and all the like windows are blacked out or something, you've got no idea. The whole day goes by, and then suddenly you walk out and it's dark anyway, and you think, oh, what happened? It's such a strange experience when you're like locked into that kind of
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Mm. You mentioned a few times it sounds like you've worked with that place a few different times. Do you have like favorite locations that you use again and again?
Um, it's not so much that. Like with the Wedge Rooms, we do live music as well. We're involved with community events, and we've just done things with them for the last 15 years. It's also like the best venue in Portsmouth, and it has a long history to it. So it's great to work with people like that. It's very far, as far as it comes to favorite locations, like any filmmaker, you want to do as many different locations as possible and not be stuck going, all right, we're gonna have to rearrange the kitchen again. We do
But you
so
would,
much.
it's remarkable how many things we've got away with shooting in the kitchen and no one would have any idea. It's
Yeah, just decorating the one corner with black drops or green screens, or we did a sci-fi film competition last year. We just covered all the walls in foil, loads of
There
foil.
were those the blankets that you have when for shock and things like that from first aid kit.
Yeah, those.
So we just used those, and because they would sort of been folded into those squares, they look like these kind of panels of
And they
like
have some
mirrored bits.
reflectiveness. Yeah,
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 so
it's
it
cool.
felt kind of more than just like tin foil on the walls. So it was really cool.
Mm.
But yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's really clever.
you just make what you can with what you
Yeah,
got, don't you? You just yeah,
yeah.
anything that can be something else, make it that.
You want to get those ideal locations, but sometimes you just got to work with a corner and just
Mm,
see what you can do with it. Same with like, there's some scenes in Curse where because the shoot took a lot longer, we were shooting into, seasons like Christmas seasons. So the pub's covered in decorations. You go, okay, so to find a way to try and avoid that, find these interesting angles, which, in the end you go, actually, that's kind of a cool angle. But at the time,
Yeah,
yeah,
because you're just framing it like so that the Christmas tree is just off the shot,
yeah,
and you've got tinsel that you've all had to take down and just make sure yeah, and that it's so stressful when you've got things like that because then you've got to put it all back together again afterwards.
Oh gosh, yeah. Do you have any other ones that come to mind where you thought like the location ended up being surprisingly really easy or something worked really, really well?
I think home is where I lay
oh yeah,
when
yeah,
we
definitely.
going back because it was one location. It was a very very stressful shoot. It was
Mhm.
in the midst of COVID, so we could only have 5 people at any. Well, we could have 6 people, but we only had five
Yeah.
people. And that was Sam directing, shooting. I was acting and doing lighting, so having to run back and forth and adjust a light to and see where it would hit me. But yeah, but it was a lot of fun because we were just in that house for an entire week and we were just working on the film constantly,
Yeah.
watching back the footage every night and going, right, okay, maybe we can reshoot that bit and do this. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun actually that shoot. And yeah, having
Stressful
that,
but free,
yeah, it was
Not stress free, free stress.
free stress.
It's a good logo for all the indie horror industry. Free stress. Yeah. And a few people on the show have worked during COVID and weirdly have ended up finding that they did like particularly good work they're really, really proud of. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it gave you more of a challenge and more of when something's in your way and you've got to think creatively to get around it, it gives you a different sort of perspective on things and lets you think differently and create something different. And
Well,
yeah,
the
it's so that makes sorry, that makes it fun. That makes it interesting because otherwise you're always just doing kind of what you want to do, aren't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
And
Let's think our
that's
first
quite a
challenge
minefield.
in March 2020, when everything kicked off, we were going to be shooting Terror Blatchley Forest. And then a week beforehand, we were like, maybe we should just reschedule this. Things aren't looking good. And then boom, lockdown. So yeah, we were kind of stuck inside and we were trying to think, well, how can we tell other stories? And the first film we shot was in August, Senseless. And Senseless was about a character going into the woods and a lot of surreal, strange things happening to them. And that made us really have to like expand our own creativity. And the film was shot entirely at night, so Jack had to really get into how to light the woods perfectly. And that's
Yeah.
become something that we've been able to consistently keep doing in the woods. And people don't like shooting in the woods at night, but it's quieter.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
lot more easy to do.
And honestly, you can just turn around and shoot a new scene, and you're somewhere entirely different.
Mm,
So it's actually really really easy to do
yeah,
and
yeah.
quite cheap.
So with that, and then Home is Where LA, like just towards the end of the year, which again we were stuck. We had the one location, but the freedom to do what we wanted to do with the story, and we were working with Bella, and she was just fantastic. And she'd written the script from like having fever dreams from COVID, so it was quite interesting to use that, that nightmare into creativity.
Mm.
And yeah, they were just two of the most freeing sort of films that we did. Um, and yeah, it's just like sometimes you have to, as Jack said, you have to work with your limitations. And I think that was a big one to work with.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's not just working with your limitations. It's learning how to sort of like make your limitations work for you
Mm,
because you can see them as an obstacle or something that gets in the way, or you can see them as a interesting challenge that you can do differently, or yeah, it can be a benefit to any project. So yeah, it's an odd one.
yeah, yeah.
Do you find as a sort of production team, quite a lot of what you end up doing is facing the challenge side of it? It's not so much the writing but it's the making it happen, making it possible.
I don't know. I think
Depends
both
which
of them
scripts,
present
yeah.
different challenges, really.
Ah.
Because sometimes you can be really stuck on a story, and we've got like tons of scripts and ideas that have
Just
just
sit there.
they just sit there because we can't be really sure of how to finish them and how to like write them and get them sort of to that point that they're ready to go kind of thing. But then sometimes you stumble upon an idea that's just it's all working and it's all coming together, and and sometimes those ideas can be really easy to produce. But then I say that, but Sam does most of the producing, so it always seems easy to me.
It's like, I don't know, sometimes, yeah, you're right. You could be spending, I think last year I was writing a screenplay and I was kind of stuck on it. I'm going, yeah, this is gonna be the next one. And then I just was like, I don't know where to go with the rest of the story. So I paused on it, started thinking about something else, and within that time I'd written that within a couple of weeks, and that was a Vinyl Exorcism, which was the next film I shot. So sometimes you just got to pause on an idea and like come back to it. And because I don't want to stop working, another one will get in the way. It's not going to be like, oh, we'll just wait until the idea finally comes together. No, something else has to come in place.
Yeah.
It's got to keep things moving,
And I think that's like sort of a bit of a strange kind of privilege of like doing a lot of films, is that you never become too sort of caught up on any one idea or one thing. You're quite easy to sort of change and move, because you go, well, that idea is not working at the moment, and as much as I'm in love with it, I can go move on, find something else,
With
and
multiple films as well, as we are trying, we want to be seen as, like the dream is to be seen as a legit studio. But at this point, it's about, we've got, I don't have to direct every film. You might want to direct
yeah.
one of the films. I might want to shoot it.
I
And
like
now
to take a
Steve
bit
in the
more
mix as
time
well.
between directing from Sam, because he just directs and directs and directs. I need a bit more time to process that stuff.
I mean, I'd like to see more productions that weren't just, there were more directors within Trash Arts. And because we've had Steve involved, we did some work with Janine Pipe last year. We did some short films with her. I've done 2 features with Jessica Hunt. It's more interesting to have different voices, even if we're involved with producing the stories. We just want to make sure they get completed. And that's what I hope we can do more over the years, is every different filmmakers we meet at Horror and Sea and other festivals, we can, see if we can help them to get their
Yeah.
film moving, even if they have to do it on a bit more of a reduced sense like we do,
Yeah.
like.
And I mean, working with both Steve and Tom Rutter, as like, and Janine has taught us so much about like how how to structure our own films and to do things in a way that work and make sense, and different techniques that they've used as well. Like Tom when we shot the part of Pocket film that
That
has
you shot.
but Bella sort of floating in the sky, and just seeing the way that Tom sort of constructed that shot so simply and so well
In the garden.
Yeah, he did it in the garden. And and it just gives you a new insight on how you can do things, how you can sort of make something that's so unimaginable to how to do it. You can just do it in like this simple, basic way. It's amazing.
We were really lucky to have Tom on the podcast, and we talked to him a bit about pocket film superstitions, and his film's so like unique and really different. And then at the same time, you do things that are like Deadly Display comes from Giallo, has a lot of tradition. Are you guys always looking for just a project that's kind of different from one you've already done, or do you have something that makes you go, I want to work with this person, this idea?
It's a little bit of a mix again, because it's, without sounding pretentious, thematic ideas keep me interested. So there's certain things I like to explore, but with each film recently, I just wanted to be like, I don't want to be stuck making just like, I don't know, slashers every single time. I love horror, and the horror has so many different elements. So you're just kind of exploring and seeing which ones work for you. But thematically, there are always going to be things that spring up. And with actors, we're very fortunate that they're good friends. So you always see a new character for them to be able to play. And again, in the past, with people like Bella and Ryan Carter, and recently with Cy Henty and Simon Berry and people like that, we've been able to really develop characters that they want to play, being able to like get into the roots of who the character is. So the investment's fully there from both sides. And I think that's more interesting to me, and exploring different types of horror, than just getting stuck in a retro frame mind or just one type of thing, because I just think there's more to explore. And also, like, I love films, so there's always different types of films to explore. It's just horror gets a bit more, there's a bit more leeway.
Yeah. And I think the thing is like changing it up, doing things, doing different films each time. It does sort of give you more of experience and insight into the process more generally.
You're always
And so,
learning.
yeah, like, and I think like I wouldn't want to be stuck on doing similar things all the time because I just feel like I've you can't perfect anything, so you might as well continuously change and grow and try to sort of like, develop in
Mm.
different ways. And also, we're always changing the way that we think and stuff. When I was, in 20, I thought differently to how I think now. So,
Yeah, yeah. Life
I
experience is
yeah,
always going to influence your art.
yeah, exactly. And they should, because otherwise, what is it for kind of
Yeah, yeah.
thing, I think.
Well, that's fair. But horror seems to be something you've stuck with. What was it about horror that keeps you so engaged?
Firstly, do love horror.
Yeah.
And secondly, the world is a messy, messy, horrible place.
Yeah.
And horror allows you to explore these things in a more, I don't know, to me, a more tangible way than just doing a drama about, because you got the subtext of these sort of things. And then sometimes you want to have to sledgehammer and just smack them in the face and make it very clear. And every horror film does it.
Mm.
Every horror film is got a lot more going on than just the blood on the screen. And that's always just fascinated me. And I've been able to do it with so many different horrors, looking at power structures, looking at, like the trust that we put into certain beliefs and ideas. You just put a little bit of genre on top,
Mm.
and because all horror has to have good characters, right? And characters believe in things. They have issues
Yeah.
going on. So
Because there
yeah,
was a time that I mean, before we become a limited company, we were doing a lot of sort of drama and
yeah,
stuff like
dark
that.
dramas, yeah.
And as fun as that was, and as much as we love that stuff, like horror lets you have more fun with the audience in a much more sort of direct way, and you still get to splice those bits of drama in and those bits of
Mm.
sort of, yeah, like with character development and stuff like that. But it also lets you think in a much more like visceral and a literal way, and taking metaphor into sort
Yeah,
of reality and showing something in a way that is going to disturb and break through that sort of like sort of the way that you think normally kind of thing, because it's disturbed you and
yeah, yeah.
stuck with you kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone who loves horror, it's true. It's something has like hit them that they'll remember forever because of a horror movie they watched. Do you guys have some favorite horror movies? I never want to ask the favorite, but do you have some favorites that you always think about?
Yeah, like it's frustrating because they're never like that original. But the thing is a masterpiece. It's that again. It's that kind of good characters, and it's good character study with these paranoia at first
Mm,
before the supernatural. So you're building that tension through like humanity's faults of always, getting that tenseness.
mm,
But there's also a monster there with like insanely good makeup, and the practical effects are out this world. I love a lot of the classics. There are
mm,
just, my dream, if I could reboot any film, because there's nothing wrong with remakes, I'd love to do a remake, be Nightmare on Elm Street, because it's surrealism mixed in with this. Because the first ones, they're dark, they're incredibly terrifying, and the ideas stick in your head. And I've been one of those people that's had Freddy pop up in my dreams every like 5 years or so. So
Mm.
like, it sticks with you. It's just one of those, yeah, the crazy psychosis mixing in with the surrealism that Wes Craven did so well. Yeah, I love a lot of horror films.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I pretty much ditto what Sam said, really. I mean, one of my favorites is Evil Dead 2,
Yeah,
just because I
masterpiece.
love the chaos of it, the sort of way that it is so scary and funny at the same time, and sort of leaves you totally unsettled because these things are taking such joy in it. But a human reaction when you hear sort of laughter and that sort of sound is to feel that yourself and laugh yourself. But yeah, it puts you in an uncomfortable place,
Yeah, so
whilst being enjoyable and
yeah,
fun,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
a really hard thing to do.
Mm.
Yeah,
And it
Ram's a
shows the
genius.
demons is the most manic evilness they can be.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my favorite film is Mulholland Drive, which some people would say is a horror film. It's sits in the middle for me. It's a Lynch film, so it's got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah, there's just so much to be able to embrace within the genre. And the reason why they're classics is usually they're actually really good, but there's still those unseen ones, and then there's the subgenres with found footage. Is yeah, just a whole game to be able to jump into.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of like an accessibility to it that's not there for other genres in film. So there's endless material to go out and watch, and so like I always think maybe my favorite horror film is something I haven't seen yet, and I'll just keep watching and trying to find it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Or make it, as the case may be.
Yeah, no, I'm too self-critical to ever be.
Oh, that's fair. Do you work a lot because you both mentioned really special effects heavy films, Evil Dead 2 and The Thing, and Deadly Display was really, really minimal on anything like that. Do you quite like working with special effects, even though small budget makes it hard?
Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes.
yeah. It could be it's a nightmare to shoot basically, but it's so good when you get it right, and it can look great. And Curse, which obviously we've been shooting over the last couple of years, is a lot more about the effects and the sort of
Yeah.
scare moments and things like that. It's more about the tensity and build up, more of a traditional horror film in that sense. But
I think it's how you're using it, and like I know personally that one of my biggest weaknesses is violence. I'm not very good at shooting a gore set piece, like a kill, and I'm trying to work out how to do it better. But I know that I'm more interested in the mechanisms of a scare, which is what Curse kind of does. It
mm,
delves more into scares, and that can be effects heavy, but it's also about that like manipulation of what the audience is thinking they're going to see in the background sometimes, you know?
mm,
So it's more interesting to me about the kind of things you can do with the camera. And again, with Deadly Display, finding that awkward, perfect framing when you get the characters just in the window there, or having a microphone right in the middle of them as they're talking. It just looks a bit odd. And I like being able to play with those sort of things. And I don't like a flat shot. And it's when you're just seeing on normal backgrounds, you can't always find that angle, but horror, you're supposed to be lurking around the corner constantly. So I like to be
mm.
able to give that like ultra voyeuristic thing when I'm trying to do cinematography with horror.
Yeah, and going back to special effects, I think it's a really fun thing to try and work out the puzzle of how to do it, because
Yeah.
obviously you know what you're trying to get and what you want the effect to be created, and you've got to just think of all the different ways that you can put that together. And obviously, it's great with for Taped Up Families, which is a film we recently shot and completed. Um, we had Darren Ward come along and work on some of the special effects and makeup
Yeah.
on our film,
All the gore.
and it looked just phenomenal and fantastic. But it again, took so long, and we had to soak some actors through with blood coming gushing from their necks and other such things. So yeah,
We have great people that we can do effects with, and we've met even like
yeah.
other amazing people who want to do effects for us. So that's the exciting bit, is going, okay, well, here's the idea, and what are you going to be able to do with that? It's just yeah, it's very stressful.
I think the way that we've always worked has been to sort of slowly develop skills and things. So we'll
Mm.
go, well, we've tried this. Let's add a little bit of this and see how we do, and then the next film we might do some more, and then we'll do some as we get more comfortable and confident with it. And that's what I think we've always treated our films as a work in progress for ourselves, of development.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
always something that you love about your previous films.
yeah,
Don't get
yeah.
me
I mean,
wrong,
like the
but
whole career is a work in progress. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly, yeah.
each film to me is like hopefully a story that someone's going to connect with, or hate and have a reason for hating it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind
Nothing wrong with Marmite.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate Marmite, but in this
Yeah, I'm
case,
not a
I'm all for
Marmite fan,
Marmite.
but
Love that. You mentioned a couple of films that just feeling I caught Curse. I think that's like Curse This Land. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that film?
yeah, I mean, it's set in sort of a sleepy seaside country village. Someone Bella's character moves from London down to buys a pub there and tries to settle in, but little does she know the land is cursed, and she'll have to deal with that. So yeah,
By a witch.
it's a well, yeah, cursed by a witch. Yeah. Um, and so yeah, it's a fun sort of horror film. I'm hoping that we'll get a few jumps and a few sort of people, a bit scared, a bit shaken maybe, but we'll see.
It's
Um,
Jack's second feature, which
mm,
is quite cool. Because we were going to do the film like a while back, and originally I was going to direct it, and it was something that Bella had written because she had great locations available to her. So it was like, yeah, cool, we'll go with this version. And then when we decided to move it into, I think that was into 2022, I was going to focus on Incessant, and Jackson at that time was quite interested in like folk horror, and we thought, well, let's pour some more folk horror into the story a bit, take
Mm,
away the slight teen angle. And yeah, it was just fun to do all these cool little
mm,
scare pieces. And we had Katie Johnson, who does most of our makeup. She did an amazing job on Ella Palmer the Witch. It was just,
yeah.
yeah, that intensity. And there were some sequences that took forever and ever and ever, but they were so bigger than anything we'd ever tried before. And that was
Mm,
kind of fun to see what Jackson bringing almost this operatic horror element to the folk horror, which was, yeah, really difficult, but
yeah.
certainly, hopefully, maybe pays off, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And you know what was so great about it was that everyone just brought everything to
Mm.
the film. You know, Ella was who was playing the witch. She added, well, she
She made
painted the
props.
skull. She
Yeah.
made
Made the witch book
spell
and
book
yeah.
and all of these other things for the project. I couldn't remember. I can't even name all of the things that she actually designed
Yeah.
and did for it. Um, and Bella was sort of, you know, working with the locations and helping with other elements of it, and Chris is always sort of there helping out and
Yeah.
just and
Everyone just
driving
jumped
us
in.
back and
Yeah, yeah.
forth, and you know,
And Steve came down for a good couple of shoots for the sound. We
yeah,
had
and
Rich
helped a
Millard
lot
and
with sort of other elements of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and yeah, it just felt like everyone brought their all to it, and it was a real sort of pleasure
Just went on for
to
a lot longer than it should have.
yeah, it,
Oh no, why did that happen?
Location, like this is the fault I did as a producer, which I really should think about. But trying to book a film where you should go, all right, we'll shoot all the indoor stuff with the Airbnb we booked, and then afterwards we'll do all the outside stuff and all the pub stuff in a seaside town in August.
Oh dear.
No, it didn't. So it took a lot longer, and then we had to get the pub at certain points. So
And there would
yeah,
be times when you know the pub would have a lot of customers in,
so we
and
just
so
had to
they would
wait.
say, "Well,
Yeah.
we're going to stay open for another half an hour. Sorry, guys."
But there were
You
also
know,
weird things that didn't make sense, like costumes going missing
yeah,
and just
yeah,
random bits and bobs. But we started going, maybe the film's cursed.
yeah.
Maybe it's
But no, everything that went wrong turned out working well as
yeah,
well.
yeah, everything went better
Went for
up
the better.
from
So
yeah.
maybe the film was blessed, and you know,
I think
I'm
it
gonna
was
take it
cursed.
that way.
All right.
That's the way I'm seeing it.
Was there like a favorite day of shooting or like a day of shooting that sticks out in your mind?
I think my favorite day would have been probably the day in the warehouse where we did the sort of there was a big sort of finale, the climax of the whole film. But then the other scene that was one of my favorites is one that where Chris's character is well, I won't give it away, but
Bin bags.
yeah, there's something happens with him in a car park with bin bags. I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
And that was tricky
Um,
because again, everyone coming together, but it was an idea.
mm,
We go, "What do you think that would work?" And someone was like, "Yeah, that would totally work," and it did.
yeah,
But we don't want to talk about it.
and we had this cool sort of electronic device made for us that was something to flicker the lights,
Yeah.
so we could you know plug a light in and just have it
Mm.
flickering continuously, and I could control the speed of the flickers and the pace, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so yeah, we could do some really cool stuff with this light flicking on and off constantly, but not in like a it was a random generated pattern, so it didn't feel too, you know, just on and off and on and off kind of thing.
The flashbacks were fun to shoot as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we did some flashbacks with a whole different cast where we got some costumes in to give it a slight 1750 or whatever year it's
yeah.
supposed to be. Yeah, there's just lots of little fun elements that made it just a bit more creative. And then at the center, you've got Chris and Bella, who, well, obviously now are a couple, but at the time they weren't. And they
It was
always
our
had this,
film that put them together. No,
it
Thanks
was,
for that.
but their chemistry was undeniable. And they're fantastic actors and two of our like good friends.
Mm,
So to see them, yeah, and then afterwards and be like, this is going to be a nice little time capsule of that
yeah.
awkwardness of before it.
Aw. That's quite sweet. Romance on a horror set. I like that.
Yeah.
It's rare.
Yeah, well, I did wonder why it took them so many takes to do that kissing scene. It was
And then we cut it.
yeah, we did.
So when you get to see it actually at the festival, it's so different because you got the audience there. What's that like?
I don't know yet. I'm sort of I'm really quite nervous for Saturday, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I've sort of seen films that I've been in at the horror on sea, and I get quite nervous about seeing myself on screen anyway. But you know, it's like that nervous, excited sort of like how are people going to react kind of. I don't. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a ride. We'll see. I might drink a lot.
What horror is about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel that way before Deadly Display? Were you also really nervous about how the audience was going to react?
No, because I had that distance from it where it was Steve's work.
Yeah.
Sam had edited it and shot it. It said that I'd edited it on the credits. I hadn't. So I was totally incorrect. But no, so I'd not had that much of a connection to it. So I'd seen parts of it and I'd trusted obviously that it was going to be amazing because you know Steve is a great filmmaker. Sam's a great cinematographer, and all the actors were fantastic. I worked with them before and know that was going to be the case. So I sort of just had a total faith and belief that it was going to go down well, and I could feel Steve very
Oh
nervous
yeah.
about
He
it,
was a
and
sweaty
you
mess.
know.
I think you just kind of got to go with the flow. You know, you got the nervousness and the anxiety, and it's gonna be building throughout the week. But at the same time, it's like it's in the festival,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's a thing in itself. So you just gotta like be happy, and the rest of it, yeah. I guess also because I've never had a film where everyone in the room loved it. So when you're constantly 50-50, you're like, well, you know, people like Steve, so you know, it's gonna go down well.
Yeah, yeah. When you kind of get used to that idea that yeah, the 50% of the room might totally hate the film, it does sort of take that nerves away a little bit because.
Definitely.
But I think Curse is one that I'm hoping is less Marmite, but we'll see. We'll see.
It sounds intriguing. I can't wait to see it, honestly. And
Thank you.
you guys do something that's really quite cool for me and my brother in particular, because some of your feature films are on YouTube and it's hard for him in the US to watch for some of the features. What made you guys decide to go that route? Because it's really great.
Well, some of our films, older titles, in our minds, well, we own the rights to it, so it's quite easy for us to get it out to put it onto YouTube. When it comes to anthology films as well, like Trash Arts Killers and stuff, it's supposed to just be a fun collective thing where we've asked some filmmakers around us and gone, "Hey, do you want to put a little story and we'll just put it out on YouTube?" So there is something that's free and reachable and easy to access. With
Yeah,
Devil May Care, that wasn't our choice. That was the distributor's plan. But again, it was like, okay, that's what you want to do. That's
yeah,
your model that we knew we were signing the film, and that was their plan. It's going to go out to other places in a few months. But really, you know, if it was up to us and you could still be secure and safe, a lot more things would be free and accessible. I'd rather more people saw things than less, you know?
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that it's one of those things where we've had a lot of films go get some sort of a release in North America, and a lot of our actors and you know people who've been involved with the films, they can't see the
No.
films that when they're released over there, and so we thought, well, it's better that they can have access to it as well and show it to people and sort of you know reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, and a good few distributors have started to, because again, because monetization on YouTube, distributors get a different deal. So certain films will get out onto YouTube where they've not been pirated and they're actually out legit. So why not share them on your channel? Why not make it clear to people, oh, you can see this. It's not just on Tubi. You can get access to it, you know? And I mean, when I went to California, Tubi was amazing. And it was just like, why isn't this here yet? That doesn't make any sense.
Mm,
But we have no power on that.
VPN.
Yeah. No, it's true. My brother's always talking about how nice it is having Tubi for indie films in particular. Do you think it's because Britain just hasn't like thought about it? Because it does seem so obvious from a maker's point of view and from a watcher's point of view.
It's complicated with the UK when it comes to supporting its independent scene because as UK is such a small country, when you have a successful independent filmmaker, they're like no one around the world. So when you have them go into Sundance and they have a UK breakthrough, but really they've gone through all the things to give, they're known within the community. They that's the kind of thing they want to showcase. And I think we talk about this often, but because of the video nasties in the 80s, that kind of killed any potential of a UK horror legacy or an independent film legacy. There were no franchises constantly being spawned out like America. So you don't get these actors like Felissa Rose, all those kind of actresses and Scream Queens who still have fans. They still have people who are interested in them. In our country, it's mostly Hammer actors. And if it's not actresses who are quite old, it's dead. They're all dead. There was no time to grow the industry.
Mm.
And that has really affected filmmakers, in my opinion, now.
Yeah, I think that,
There's less of an interest.
when
There's
you
less of an
look at
investment.
sort of North America, I know a lot of independent filmmakers who are able to sort of make a bit of money and able to sort of
Get their
get their
MG
work
minimum.
out there more. Getting access to sort of independent cinemas, things like that. And yeah, I think that, Mary Whitehouse basically tried to destroy and tear apart every pillar and post of our industry she possibly could.
Well,
And it was an industry that wasn't even sort of there yet. So
the 70s it
yeah, oh, I
was.
mean, it was, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, with the new technology that
No,
come
yeah,
along,
yeah.
that sort of, people picking up a camera and just being able to do it for themselves, it really stopped that. And there are only a few sort of names who were able to sort of continue on, but even those didn't really make any sort of real money from that. And so I think we're still sort of living in the ruins of that, and we need, like, something needs to be addressed. So we need to do something about, I don't know what, but like we need to do something about
There
it.
needs to be a way to, hopefully you just got to hope people keep on creating because
Yeah,
then other people will be aware of that creation and those people will get more like interest in the future.
yeah,
It's just, I think we have to accept that we really were screwed as an industry, as independent filmmakers, because of what happened with that. Because no producer wanted to fund something that couldn't be released in the country that was produced.
yeah, that could get a video shop raided by
Yeah,
police.
it's just it would be too
It's,
much of a headache, and the controversies wouldn't be worth it.
yeah,
So yeah, no one grows. And then by the 90s come along, it's just, there's more action directors coming. Just
mm,
lots of different things happening. Horror had a bit of a lull in the 90s. So I don't know. You don't if you were to try and get a legacy actor outside of, well-known names from the 70s and 80s that are American or Italian or what British comedians from the early 2000s. That's the only thing I can think of that would still potentially get a pull in 2024. It's
mm.
but yeah, I don't know. Like we just believe that there needs to be more of a with the community that if we all come together, then that legacy thing gets a little bit stronger. I think we've gone on a tangent from the original question.
Yeah, and well, it was about Tubi,
Tubi,
wasn't it? And
yeah.
that's sort of
Yes,
linked,
it's
I think.
linked.
Yeah,
No,
why does American have it better?
Yeah, because they just you look at every crowdfunder and you'll see names like Lynn Lowry and people like
Yeah.
that. They're attached
Mm.
because they're accessible and they've got that legacy of films and they've got those fanboys who are still like, oh my God. And don't get me wrong, we have fanboys for actors in this country, but it's taken time for certain people to really get that interest. And if they're younger, then it's through a lot of different things of really getting their faces out there all the time, like Danny Thompson, people like that. Whereas like the 70s ones, like the Bond girls and the Hammer girls, those fans have probably been with them for a long time.
yeah, very true.
Just don't have it with normal, regular, just actors. It's just not a
Mm.
variation of genre actors who you can spring to have been around for the last 20, 30 years that people can afford. A
Mm.
lot of them actually go off to Hollywood and stuff, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. And I mean, it's been really interesting because we've been working with a filmmaker from Portsmouth who worked here from, it was from what time period was it? I mean, it was
I
up
don't know who
until
you're talking
2015.
about.
Michael J.
Oh.
Murphy. But we've been working with actors of his, and he made films from, was it from
80s.
the 80s?
Well, from the 60s until the 2000s, but the prominent time was he was on the video nasty list in the 80s.
Yeah, and we've been working with some of his old actors who, they're very surprised when people like Steve meet them and say, "I've been inspired by your work for a very long time," and say to them like, "You're the reason that I've become a filmmaker." and those people don't because they've sort of carried on, lived their lives. You know, they haven't been able to get any of that appreciation or any of that sort of yeah, like being recognized by people. So it is harder to tap into that as
Mm.
well, because it's such an unknown of who was actually sort of popular and who was fake. They might not even know that they're popular, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But as you say, making things with them, continuing making, it seems like it's doing so much. I mean, things have started to grow, I think, a lot more. Have you seen that in Portsmouth?
You see more filmmakers coming up, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's always interesting when again you go to something like Horror on Sea and you see someone who knows someone in Portsmouth that you might know.
Mm,
Um, Portsmouth's yeah, it's always tricky when you try and think about it locally. There are filmmakers around, there's some awesome filmmakers, but there's not as many horror filmmakers. There's Robert Litzky,
yeah.
he's a brilliant horror filmmaker, makes excellent short films. And there's been a few legacy kind of filmmakers, again, Michael J. Murphy and Chris Jupp and his name Wes Skelly. But yeah, I guess we've become more connected with the whole more national sense, you know. Don't work. It just tends to be people around the circles that come in.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah, it's
think
not one.
yeah, because I think like
A lot of students.
yeah, there's a lot of people who come in and out of Portsmouth all of the
Mm,
time, because it's a huge student population, and it's a port city, and people, so
yeah,
people
yeah.
are here for a bit and then go, and so you have a lot of people always sort of coming through, and it's difficult to keep track of everyone that might be doing this stuff. But
There's Dan
we've been running.
Hawkins.
Oh yeah,
He
well,
yeah, because there's a guy called Dan Hawkins. He did lots of CGI and a lot of the effects for Host. In fact, most of Rob Savage's films. Rob Savage used to make films down in Portsmouth with him when Dan was in Portsmouth, and we crewed with him and we learned a lot from him.
yeah,
But unfortunately, a lot of people who want to go on and succeed leave Portsmouth quite quickly.
yeah.
So
Oh.
he's in London, the studio, and he's in Japan now, isn't he?
No,
He's
no,
somewhere, he's somewhere around the world. But it was amazing to see how they work and to see them actually succeed. Because all you want in any friend circle or any sort of circle around you is for people to succeed. And yeah, when it comes to them being filmmakers, it just feels better, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of curiosity, since you do have like we've been talking about the burgeoning and the student filmmaker, if you could give some advice to somebody who really wants to get into film but doesn't know what they're doing yet, do you have any like good useful advice or advice you found would have been helpful to you?
I think think about sounds really, really simple. When you're going on a shoot and producing something, think about food, think about water, think about the basic necessities of what people need. Because if something if people don't have that stuff, they're not going to be able to do a good job. And
Yeah.
that's like the most key thing to me, is just treat people well, and you'll get great work out of them.
Yeah, and if you make a mistake, you learn from a mistake. You're always learning, and
Yeah.
mistakes are not necessarily a bad thing, you
Is
know?
recognizing that they're mistakes that's
Yeah,
important, isn't it? And knowing it, because once
accountability
you
for
know
it.
it, don't you?
Yeah,
And that's it's okay. People will accept like that kind of thing as well.
especially
People are
when people are
very
just learning
accepting.
and stuff. It's just like I can understand any anxiety towards any sort of creative endeavor. But if you don't try, you're not going to know if it's the right path for you. So you just gotta go for it and just like most of the time you will find someone in your community who has a little bit more experience. So why not like either get them involved or learn from them, you know?
Mm,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. How about for the two of you? What was like something that happened or an idea or a film you watched that made you go, I'm gonna try this? What got you started?
Hmm. Well, I the first feature I made, which was terrible, and I got technically sacked from it, I guess. But it was called Flummox, and it was at 18. I tried to make my first feature film when I was 18, and
Wow.
yeah, like I didn't know what I was doing, and I annoyed people and just stressed everyone out. And they were cool with my script, and the script was insane. It didn't make any sense. But it was just like, got to do this, you know? This is what I want to do. I don't want to spend ages at university learning. I might as well just make a feature and then I'll learn from that. And it took a long time to feel comfortable where now I can go, all right, I can shoot a feature. I can produce a feature, I can write one, I'm comfortable with it. Whether it's going to be a great one or a good one, we'll see. You know, you
Mm.
don't know. You can't always. You want to make a good film every time, but sometimes you watch something and you go, maybe that didn't work out. But someone else finds something in it, so it's like that's all right. It's not disowning it. It's just accepting that perhaps there were some things that went wrong there.
Yeah. I came from sort of, well, I did a degree in theatre, and so I was sort of considering going to drama school after that, but I'd always loved film and TV and other such sort of mediums like that. But it was I just sort of realised that drama school is so elitist and so difficult to get into, and if you don't have a family member that's going to sort of grease the palms or something like that, you're not gonna. It's very 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 difficult to get in. And so I thought, I'd already been working with Sam on films, and I thought, like, well, maybe it's better to sort of focus on something that I know that I can do, and that I know that I can, we can do something that, you do a play, and you might have, even if it's a full house, sort of like 600 people come and see it, but you make a film, and you might have 30,000 people see it on a VOD site, and so I was sort of like, well, then that's that. I think that's the better route, actually. And I started learning how to use the camera because I wanted to learn how to act better with a camera. And then I sort of started learning all the other parts of filmmaking for the same reason, and then just fell in love with filmmaking as well. So now I do both.
That's the thing. Like, I remember, I think it was about 11 when I decided I want to be a filmmaker because I wrote short stories since I was 7, and I just realized there's a bigger audience there for film. And I just suddenly, yeah, just I tried to make a feature film when I was 12, when I was 14, when I was 15. It was just always on the cards to just keep on making stuff. It's just, yeah, and I can't, I mean, we do other art projects for our other organizations. So we're fortunate to be constantly doing something on a creative level. But film is the one. It's the one that I would like to dedicate everything. Well, not everything, a bit of life, but I'm gonna do a blood sacrifice to film. But
And you guys do so many different things, and I mean, obviously in indie horror, you end up doing so many different things. But do you have a favorite? Do you all love writing, acting, producing, set design most?
I mean, I love directing. Directing, having, especially when like you've got your shot list together and you start visualizing it. And sometimes, I mean, I love cinematography when it works. A lot of the time, it's the hefty lift the fucking camera, put it there,
Just
place
swearing
it.
at the camera
Just
for an
yeah,
hour.
stress with the camera. But then editing could be the best bit as well because you're suddenly seeing it clicking together, and you're watching that footage and you're seeing all that work that's been put into it. There's not really many stages I hate, except from sound. I hate sound. I hate sound mix. I hate post-production sound. And it's the most expensive bit, that no one's like, because it's such a niche bit that if you're good at it, you can charge it right. So you do it yourself and you're just constantly going through sound channels up and down. I hate it so much. Absolutely. And I get stuck with it because no one else has learned any of the skills of it. So I'm stuck doing the post sound for Curse, doing Deadly Display, and me and Tom trying to fix that. Just a nightmare, absolute nightmare. But what about you?
Um, well, I think we're supposed to be talking about what we like about filmmaking, but you went into a
Everything.
rant.
Hey, you know what? I bet you there are so many other people who make films going, yes, bloody sounds. Because I hear that a lot.
It's a nightmare. No, I think probably directing or acting would probably be my favorite thing to do. But I love being on other people's sets and working like as a gaffer or something else because it lets you sort of be there and soak it all in without too much stress, but you can sort of facilitate what's going on and help out and add to whatever they're doing. And yeah, so that I really enjoy sort of doing that anyway. But yeah, acting and directing are the top choice, obviously.
Mm. And do you think all your experience making films, because you've done it for so many years now, does you think it changes the way you watch other films?
I think it does. It
Yeah.
can't not. It's like any industry. If you were focused in on it and then you're watching other stuff, or if you were a chef and you went to a restaurant, you get to think about those different elements.
Mm,
And not necessarily in a critical way. It's not like, well, now I know how to make a film, so I can see all the bad things.
yeah.
You can appreciate those little elements more. And you really appreciate, like you said, a filmmaker's story of
Mm.
how the film got to the screen, because you're like, Jesus Christ. So yeah, you can imagine the stress. You can imagine every bit of love put into something that could tear him apart. And, it's true though. Like you hear so many stories and you just think, Jesus, man, that's horrible. But they got there in the end. They always get there in the end because they're telling you the story of a completed film, usually, you know?
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, that was such a tangent. I don't know
That
what was
was
the
related.
No, I was
Sorry.
asking about if it changed the way you watch movies, all this
Oh
experience.
Yeah,
yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
it's related.
Yeah, no, I got it. I get it now, but it just threw me for a second. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you watch a horror film now, and I don't get that sort of same feeling of fear that I used to get years and years ago. And I mean that's a shame, but then at the same time, I'm there marveling at how it was done and the effect and everything like that. You know when it's an effective scare, but
I
it.
still do. I
Do
still
you
get,
still get
yeah, I
that?
still get stuck in it because
Wow.
it depends on what kind of film it is. But
Yeah, that's
I'm like,
true.
oh, Jesus. Like when I watched Hereditary, and I watch it again, every time that film makes me sweat because I'm like, I know what's coming.
Yeah,
I
I think
know it's
there's
done well, and oh God, here we go. It's
there's
still
there's
like that effect.
there are certain films that manage to sort of surpass it, I guess. But like, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because like
It is
you
hard, but
do end up getting more desensitized to it because you know the mechanisms of it, and so like if you see a shot the way that it's sort of building up or something, you can kind of say, oh, I know something's gonna jump out from there,
why I
or
don't over. That's the thing. I don't like when
I
people do
can't
that. 'Cause
help it.
it's
I
like
just see it. I just see it. I can't. Yeah, I can't like.
it's in the back of my mind, and you
But
just
then when
don't want to bring it to
something
the forefront, you know.
when something utilizes that and uses the fact that you know that something should be coming out from that back corner, but actually it comes out from that corner or something like that, that can really like yeah. So it
Yeah,
can be
yeah, yeah.
effective still. But yeah, sometimes you just end up seeing through some of it, don't you? And then yeah.
Sam, you mentioned Hereditary, but what are some other films like that you can think of that you watched relatively recently that were able to still give you a shock?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of giallos, and it's more the twistiness of the stories. Darren brought like a whole bunch of them round, so I've just been going through the DVDs, and it's like the tension and the sort of trying to think of direct titles, but they're all very long
Yeah.
titles to remember.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I always find something quite intense and brilliant in horror every year. I mean, the last film that really was like, whoa, where did that come from? That was new was Evil Lurks Within.
Yeah.
That the Argentinian film. That film's
Yeah.
that goes places, and you're like, great, it still exists. Those kind of films, you know.
Yeah, and that was one that knew how to sort of play on the sensibility of sort of knowing what was going to happen because
Mm.
it would make you go, oh no, they're not. You're not going to do that, are you? That's not what you're going to do. Oh God, they are. Oh, and yeah, that was great for that. That still hit
Yeah.
me actually. Yeah, yeah.
And when the camera doesn't cut away from something, it's still lingering, and you're like, there's got to be a cut somewhere, and then you just stay with the moments.
Mm,
Like, yeah, there's some nasty stuff in that film. And yeah, so there is always moments to relish in horror each year, and you can't say that about a lot of other genres.
yeah.
And that's from the mainstream and independent.
That's very true. I've always found horror had the capacity to surprise and excite me no matter what. You just had to find the right horror film, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. One of the questions Chris and I always like to ask, because both he and I grew up and we were the only ones in the family who liked horror films, and we have best friends who refuse to watch horror. So we always want to ask if you had a good suggestion of a horror film to give to somebody who hasn't seen horror, so doesn't really know if they like it or not, but might like give them a sense of something they'd enjoy, something to see if they could dip their toes in it more.
Gateway horror, then. God, that's tricky.
Yeah, that's a really hard question. um,
Because you could say Evil. I mean, nah, because Evil Dead's still pretty.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking.
Throw someone into the deep end with something like that.
That's
Like,
what I mean, though. That's where I feel
that's yeah.
desensitized, because now I watch things and I go, "Oh, that's quite light, isn't it?" And then someone else will watch it and go, "No, no, that's horrific." What
Yeah,
do you mean that's light?
yeah.
Oh, I thought that was quite entertaining and funny.
Yes, and again, it depends on. I think because you want to be, you should be aware of how people are going to respond to certain shocks. And if you're trying to get them into something and they don't like violence too much, then you're probably better off showing them a haunted house movie, like I don't know,
Mm,
Insidious, or maybe a classic like oh God, what Haunting or something like that, from the
mm,
60s. But again, if they like gore and they don't like those kind of scares, then you go, well, let's go for a slasher.
yeah.
Get Halloween on the go.
I think it's always good to look at sort of like older classics. You're looking at the Universal films and things like that, because they still have certain elements
Yeah,
of
definitely.
those things in horror within them, but they're not. It's not done to such an extreme, and probably people might. I don't know, maybe get it more after watching those things and seeing the roots of it, and then they can go, oh, I understand now why this has developed to what it is now.
Yeah, and if you want to just be like, look, grow up, watch a horror film, show them Videodrome. Just
That's the deep end. Wow.
that's one of my favorite horror films as well. I adore David Cronenberg because he
Oh, it's
stays in your head for a long time, and that's what I want to disturb people, and he does it best. Disturbing is much more powerful than making people go because then if they just don't keep those ideas out, and you want to creep in like a bug and stay there.
Mm.
Lay some
I
eggs.
Sometimes it's disgusting.
No, I really agree though. You're right. Like a jump scare lasts 2 seconds, and as you said, if you watch it again a second time, it might not hit. But disturbing really can stay with you. And I think that's something that is really hard to aspire to as well. It's weirdly hard to disturb one, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah, because at the end of the day, you want to entertain people at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's something I noticed very much in a lot of independent films, especially in the UK, with the people were more interested in fun entertainment than necessarily disturbing. And if it is disturbing, generally goes more into the exploitation cinema sort of side of disturbing. And there's different tools with disturbing. You can disturb people just with ideas outside of just like put it all on display in the most visceral way, or you can mix between the two.
Yeah,
And
or you can
that's
create
always
something
interesting.
something far more surreal and odd, and something that disturbs people on that basis,
Yeah.
because they can't people found that scene in Senseless with Ryan's face sort of moving and stuff.
Oh
People
yeah,
found
yeah.
that quite disturbing because it I don't I can't really explain it. It's so grotesque and so odd, but it's yeah. No.
Amazing. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking to you guys. I know I've taken up a decent amount of your time. I just wanted to give you a chance now to talk about any projects you're excited, looking forward to, want people to pay attention to, look out for coming up.
Well, we've got Taped Up Memories, Taped Up Family, obviously Curse, which spoken about, but we've got Taped Up Memories and Taped Up Families that are
That's our found
coming out soon.
footage trilogy. We're going to be shooting the third part this year with Steve Sibley, and it's like a 2003 retro mishmash, soldiers and violence, and there's two different films of it. We did Taped Out Memories, which was more of like a broken tape, so it's constantly flicking through different other things happening.
Yeah, and it's a basic story about a family who go out for a sort of trip across the country, and they pick up a hitchhiker along the
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
and he murders them mercilessly. But because of the tape being sort of distorted, footage is misplaced throughout the tape.
yeah, yeah.
You cut back and forth between these brutal moments from a conversation or from someone laughing to them being smashed in the face with the camera, and it's a really sort of I think it's a shocking film because you just don't know what you're going to see next on it. And then obviously Taped Up Families, Steve directed that for us. And it's again, I played the hitchhiker in the first film,
It's about
by
the
the way.
hitchhiker's previous day before that point.
Yeah, so
Not a new
he's
section
where
of
they pick him
characters.
up in the woods, what he's been doing out in those woods, and who he has murdered again
Yeah, a lot
mercilessly.
of murder, a lot of murder. I'm looking forward to finishing a Final Exorcism. I hope that we will have it ready for 2025 Horror on Sea. Um, it's been dense. Like it's some of the best acting I've ever seen. Cy Henty, Suki Jones, Keely Joe Jupp, and Simon Berry have just been mind-blowing to watch. And I really deep dive into exorcisms of the High Anglican Church because it's folklore at the end of the day, and like some of that stuff is like crazy. So to bring it into the horror film and yeah, just watch really good acting and then really try to explore the horror side, which I don't talk too much about, but yeah, it's gonna hopefully surprise people. I've really tried to push myself further with this one.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
it's, I mean, Sam shot it, and it looks phenomenal, and you know, and so like the shots and the quality of it, just to be, you know, and with the acting, and such a sort of a quality cast, you know, it feels like a really like big film. I'm really excited to see how it finishes off. Yeah.
yeah, it should be interesting.
They both sound amazing. I assume you can see the trailers on your YouTube channel. Is that right?
For
See it
Taped
taped
Up,
up
Taped
and
Up, yeah.
cursed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Curse, yeah.
I,
It's just
honestly, both of those sound amazing. Taped Up Families and Final Exorcism. I love exorcism films, so I can't wait to watch it. Thank you both so much for being on the show with us today. I really appreciate your time, and it's been wonderful. Really, thank you.
been great chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you, of course, our listeners. This has been the London Horror Movie Club.
If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Kukurbit, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.